fired up college students back in 1992, many milestones came to fruition. On campus, we protested the beating of Rodney King and the verdict which led to the Los Angeles riots. Many of us college students got a chance to participate as a voter in our first presidential election. And later on that year, we were fired up again to view Spike Lee's new joint, Malcolm X. On May 19th, Malcolm X, or later known as Malik El-Shabazz, a human rights activist and a Muslim leader, would have been 97 years young if not for his assassination in Harlem back in 1965. Today, myself and EP Michael Wamble reflect on the life of Malcolm X, speak with award-winning musician Speech Thomas about his contribution to the soundtrack, and the film that brought Malcolm to many of our collective conscious. I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and this is a special edition of Interludes. Interludes, a pure Lighthouse production. This episode is brought to you by Interludes Extra Talk on Tuesdays. Subscribe today to our Interludes YouTube channel and never miss an episode. And now, all the way live from the south side of Chicago, give it up for your host, Val the Voice Johnson. I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and welcome to a special edition of Interludes. I am with executive producer Michael Wamble, and it's May, and we decided to honor and look at the life of Malcolm X. This was such a great topic and great person to acknowledge and recognize. He's important to us. And Michael, I just wanted to get your thoughts on Malcolm Little. He was born Malcolm Little and then became Malcolm X. What's made him such a larger than life personality in our American culture where he should be always remembered?
Well, I think that the person that we're talking about, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, as he came to be known later in his life, after the pilgrimage to Mecca, that this is a person that is important in American culture, American history, world history, because of the way that he exited the earth more so than the way he entered the earth. The way he came to us on May 19th was as Malcolm Little. Mm-hmm. Malcolm Little was a young boy, the son of a preacher and a mom, and in that capacity, he was African American, and he was African American more by blood and culture than he was by melanin. He's a light-skinned, as they would call it, African American. He's someone whose life seems to intrigue us. In this, we know the day that he died, and we know that he was assassinated, but we still, at this point, do not know who assassinated him and who took him away from us. In fact, most recently, Barry Scheck, who's the co-founder of the Innocence Project, said this: the assassination of Malcolm X was a historic event that demanded a scrupulous investigation and prosecution, but instead produced one of the most blatant miscarriages of justice that I have ever seen. Late last year, Val, the two men who had been convicted and put into prison, who were said to be responsible for the assassination of Malcolm X, were finally and justly released. That means that officially we do not know who was responsible for this man's death. And had he lived, he surely would have transformed life in America and life likely across the world in featuring those people of the African diaspora. So it was a tremendous loss that's been reflected in popular culture, has been reflected in literature and music, as well as the 1992 film Spike Lee's Malcolm X, all of which we'll get to talk about and reflect on today. So I'm really excited to do that.
Yeah. The one thing that I will say, growing up, other, I'd like to say, civil rights leaders were highlighted and taught in grammar schools. I went to a public school here in Chicago, and I didn't get exposed to Malcolm X until high school, college. My first intersection with Malcolm X and learning about him was the autobiography of Malcolm X as told by Alex Haley. And I remember reading that in my senior year in high school, and then a more deep dive when I got to college. And usually, Malcolm is always compared to Martin. One thing that I will call out, Malcolm was born in Omaha, where a lot of my family members are. And you just mentioned that Malcolm's father was a minister, but he was also a follower of Marcus Garvey. And I want to say in many parts of the United States in the 1920s, people doing and having a Black Wall Street where you actively participated in the supporting other black businesses and being a supported community outside of anyone else. So what was your first exposure to learning about who Malcolm X was and how his life was important?
That's a really interesting question. I think some of my first kind of exposure to Malcolm X came, I'm not sure what came first. First, I guess first was, I'm going to credit the CTA for this.
CTA? Okay.
Yeah, because I think that the first time I really got exposed to Malcolm X, I was going back and forth from home to high school. And to do that, I had to take a bus, and that bus took me past 79th Street, corner of 79th and Halsted. And right, not too far away from there is one of the mosques of the Nation of Islam. Mm-hmm. And I would hear kind of this speech going, just like, from a speaker. You'd hear it outside and you're waiting for your bus. And you could hear it and you would get these kind of pamphlets and all this information from people getting on and off and just in transit. And I think that was when the first time I heard the name Malcolm X. Even to this day, I wouldn't dare kind of go over the life of Malcolm X to tell you that I'm an authority of it. If you really want to know who Malcolm X was, the go-to place, as it's been for the last, 60, 70 years, Val, is still the autobiography of Malcolm X as told to Alex Haley.
Right.
That's the place where if you want to start learning about this person, I would say go there before you even dare to read articles, or especially before you would see Spike Lee's seminal movie.
The third interview that I did for Playboy, I believe it was third or maybe the fourth, was of Malcolm X, at a time when Malcolm was just coming into major prominence in the national periodicals and newspapers. When the interview of him appeared, among its readers was a book publisher who asked Malcolm if he would be willing to tell his life in book-length detail. Malcolm was hesitant at first, but he finally agreed that he would. And then, because I believe Malcolm associated me as the black writer who probably was affiliated more with major national magazine stories, he asked me if I would be willing to work with him on this book. I was pleased, honored, flattered to do so. And I would spend the next 2 years with Malcolm X. The first year interviewing him very exhaustively. The second year taking all that interview material, putting it out first in a very exacting chronology, breaking it up into what seemed to be logical chapter sections, and then studying each of those sections very intensively, and then writing vicariously first person as if I were he, a manuscript which hopefully would sound as if Malcolm had just sat down across a table and was trying to tell a reader his life as best he could recall it from earliest days.
Yeah, and now that you mention that, the film Malcolm X was released as of late this year. It'll be 30 years since its release.
Yes.
And
that's crazy.
I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. Okay. I was telling this to somebody else, and I'm like, has it been 30 years? Yes, it has.
It's been 30 years.
And I think
that's amazing.
And I think of all of the brilliant performances, Delroy Lindo,
yes,
and Angela Bassett.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of mind-boggling to me. The one thing that stands out and makes me still tear up to this day, and he was living still at the time, at the very end, Spike likes to do a long ending. It's like doesn't end immediately, but he does like a long.
Spike cut Lee, as I call him. Spike, cut it, man, cut it.
No, he doesn't do it.
Cut it, please.
The way Malcolm X ended reminded me very much of my other favorite from Spike, which is School Days. I love the way School Days ends, but I'm thinking it's a little long, but I get it. I really get it.
A little long?
A little long, yes. I'm being very gracious when I say that. But to have Ossie Davis
Ozzy gives the eulogy in the movie.
He gives the eulogy, right. He gives a eulogy in the movie.
Same as he did in real life. The same as he did
in real life.
For Malcolm X's funeral.
And I thought that was most important, to hear Ozzy and to and what I love is when you had Denzel portraying him almost the entire all 3 hours, but then to be able to see the footage and to see actual photos and pictures of Malcolm, it tied you to the story. And then, at the end of the eulogy, I don't think he does the full eulogy. I think it's a part of the eulogy. It's not the full eulogy. Then you have children in an American school, and they stand up and say, "I'm Malcolm X. I'm Malcolm X." And then the accent changes to a South African accent, and you see these beautiful African children stand up and say, "I'm Malcolm X." And I'm like, then you see Nelson Mandela, who... Why am I getting emotional right now thinking about that scene, Michael? That's ridiculous.
Today, May 19th, we celebrate Malcolm X's birthday because he was a great, great Afro-American. And Malcolm X is you, all of you. And you are Malcolm X.
I'm 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 Malcolm X.
I am 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 Malcolm X.
As Brother Malcolm said, we declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be given the rights of a human being, to be respected as a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intended to bring into existence.
By any means necessary.
No, it's not. It was moving, and you're thinking that, since that movie came out, all of the people that we have lost that were transformative in the world, Malcolm X certainly had an influence on Nelson Mandela and his fight against apartheid
Exactly.
in South Africa. And what you also have to remember is this, and I got to tell you about, it's amazing to me. I had some of my students reading the Young Readers edition of Born a Crime by Trevor Noah.
Yes, that's a
Trevor
great
Noah,
one.
the host of The Daily Show, comedian, celebrity in his own right, and someone who was born and raised in apartheid South Africa.
Right.
And having to kind of try to explain to these young people that this is not something from the 50s or the 60s or something that your great grandparents dealt with. This is something that is contemporary to your parents, in some cases, their grandparents, that this was pretty recent, that a government was based on this type of racial segregation that was codified and made legal to the point that we had to, as Americans, as African Americans, as people of conscience, speak out against it. And finally, it changed. But for so many years, this man was in jail fighting for human rights, the same way that Malcolm X fought for human rights. And I make that differentiation here. Civil rights has to do with the laws. And yes, Malcolm X wanted to change laws. Certainly Nelson Mandela wanted to change the laws of the government of South Africa at that time, which had to do with apartheid. But what they were really upset about was that these systems, the government and the people who either were in charge of them or incidentally funded them through giving money to that government, supporting that government, and the U.S. did that for too long. You were violating human rights. You was denying people the opportunity to be human through your system. And this is what Nelson Mandela, this is why in the end, Mandela won. This is why in the end, the civil rights movement ultimately won major victories in this country. Because you can only do that for so long.
Right.
To imprison someone else, because in imprisoning them, you're putting yourself, as paraphrase, Franz Fanon, you're putting yourself in that same jail, right?
Right.
You're making yourself as jailer. You're putting yourself in jail too. There's no reason to do that. So I understand it. I mean, I cried. I remember sitting in the theater crying toward the end, even though Spike should have cut that movie a little long. It runs at 3 hours and 23 minutes. I know that because I recently looked it up. I was thinking about showing it to some students, and I'm like, wow, that's still a big.
You would have to chop it up, and I ended up, when I was teaching high school, I remember showing it, but I showed it in 3 parts. I literally broke it up in 3 or 4 different parts. Yeah.
1 day, 2 day, or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, it's and I understand why it's so long, because it's such a complicated story, and you don't want to take anything away from it, just like with the autobiography, and just like his actual life.
Right.
Like, what do you take away? You take away his criminality. You need that, because to understand the level and the depth of his redemption, you need to understand where he came from, how low he was at that point in his life, that he was in prison, he was lost, there was no one he felt loved him, there was nothing that he felt, no connection to the world, until he felt that he heard the voice of God. And that changed him. That's what changed him.
And I want to now kind of focus now on the film, because if you were someone who, I think in 92 we were dealing with the Los Angeles riots.
Mm-hmm.
We dealt with the dismissal of charges to the officers that beat Rodney King. And then there was other things that were happening in that year, and I remember thinking this film felt like a triumph. Other notable performances I want to call out is Al Freeman Jr. A lot of people know him in the soap opera world in from One Life to Live, but he portrayed Elijah Muhammad with such quiet brilliance. Albert Hall, Teresa Randall, this was one of her first films out the gate.
Yes.
And Lynetta McGee, who portrays Malcolm's mom, and Tommy Hollis, who portrays Earl Little. I'm a man. And you see him standing outside of his burning home.
Yeah.
But the anchor of this film is Denzel. And I'll go back. Denzel had been nominated for a couple of awards, but then was nominated for Best Actor. And I think that was a singular award that was won for that was nominated for the Oscar. However, it did win Best Film for the NAACP Image Awards, the New York Film Critic Choice Awards. He won a lot of awards in that, and I think he was up against who ended up winning in that year. A Scent of a Woman went to Al Pacino, and one thing that I wanted to
still questionable, highly questionable.
Highly questionable, but a lot of people were thinking that Al Pacino should have won for earlier work, and he won for this. And this is one of Denzel's works where many of us have debated quietly, and this was one of the ones he was cheated out of. And I'll go ahead and quote this. Martin Scorsese said about Washington's performance, it was one of the best in American movies, phenomenal, and he felt like it was a snub, and definitely Lee felt like it was a sub, and he actually took an entire Netflix show. She's Gotta Have It in the comments of his characters. Kind of talk about how Denzel was cheated out of the awards, and I was thinking, wow, you can create art to discuss how you felt like you've been cheated, but to handle the ever changing personality and persona of from Malcolm Little to Malcolm X to thank you. To actually channel all of that and to put that on screen, I'm looking at Denzel thinking, I don't see him. He literally disappeared into the role where you saw Malcolm. You didn't see Denzel. That's how I felt.
The problem that confronts our people today wouldn't even exist.
That's right. Now we ain't Americans, huh?
So I have to stand here today as what I was when I was born. A black man.
Well, the amazing part about it now is that you probably wouldn't have an actor do, and the choice that Spike Lee makes in that movie now, especially with the technology that we have today, you would probably not have an actor make or a director make that choice again. Here's the thing: Denzel Washington looks nothing like Malcolm X.
Nope.
They don't resemble each other in any way. They're both male, and they're both considered in our country to be African American. That's it. The end of story. So here, today, Val, can't you imagine someone give Spike Lee like a Netflix budget or Peacock Universal budget? He gets to use computers and prosthetics and do all sorts of things. Now in the era that we have of deep fakes, you could make him look exactly like Malcolm X if you wanted to. But the fact that Denzel doesn't look like him just takes on his persona, his cadence, when he speaks, his
Yeah.
mannerisms
Mm-hmm.
captures this person where I know for a fact there are generations of people that have to be told, like, he played Malcolm X, but that was a movie. That is what Malcolm X actually looks like. It's like, really? Like, yeah, for real. Yes. It's not Denzel. Denzel's an actor. This is a different thing, you know? And that's the magic. That's the impressive part of this. I mean, he becomes Malcolm X.
Yeah. Yeah. And we
Yeah,
had a
I'm sorry. The other thing I think that I want to make sure we get in.
Okay.
We're going to get to it,
okay.
but this movie wasn't a movie. It was a movement. The lead up to Malcolm X is probably the biggest rollout of a movie that I can remember. And I love movies. I've been watching them all my life, you know. But as far as promotion, and I'm talking about bigger than anything, any of the Marvel movies that have come, you know, later, bigger than any of the Avatar movies or any of this stuff. The promotion that led up to Malcolm X coming out was a cultural phenomenon. You had people, African Americans, people of all different backgrounds. You got people of different backgrounds connected to music, to entertainment, to education, and all of a sudden started wearing X's. Do you remember this?
I remember that. Yeah, that was a big deal.
The X hat was a status symbol.
Oh my
it's
gosh!
Like, you knew or you didn't know. People would have these things, you know, these Malcolm X medallions. You know,
that became very popular.
Otherwise. And it was just the fact that it's like, if you know, you know. And if you didn't, you did not. And it wasn't Universal Pictures or Warner or anybody that was connected with the film necessarily marketing. This was like Spike Lee kind of almost guerrilla marketing. You would see, you know, people that never said anything about anything, like Michael Jordan, suddenly stick on a X hat. A Malcolm X hat, you know, athletes, entertainers. This was like a big deal.
And a lot of
getting made.
And I think a lot of those people contributed to this film being made. And also the budget for this was estimated at $33 million. And its opening weekend on November 22nd, 1992, it made about $9.8 million. And then its worldwide gross was hit around $48 million. And in most cultures, you gotta, and how they operate in Hollywood, you need to make back your budget within the first week or 2 weeks of the film. But I think because of the type of film this was and the filmmaker, it was more important to get the word out about this. And then just kind of, Spike did not have that studio or whatever kind of saying, you know, you need to hurry up and make this money back or whatever. No, he had it financed and he had help from, I think, Michael Jordan. And there's like several others. I think many of the people show up in the end credits of the film. And one of the songs, there were 2 or 3 songs that came at the end of the film. We had spoken to last year Speech Thomas of Arrested Development, and he let us know what he thought and how it was to work on the song as well as shooting the video. Revolution, shooting the video in Brooklyn in 93 to promote the soundtrack. Here it is. Revolution. That's, I guess, one of my favorites that you've done for a soundtrack. How was it working with Spike Lee, and when you all shot the music video for that song? I lived in Brooklyn for 18 years, and just kind of walking around and just feeling the vibe. You've described your music as life music. How was that whole experience working with Spike and creating that song for that soundtrack for Malcolm X?
I had always been a huge Spike Lee fan. His movies have moved me like very little others have in the Black world of film. And So I'd always been hoping to work with him. I tried to reach out to him numerous times as just a nobody. You know, Arrested Development wasn't big or anything, and trying to get on his films with our music, Arrested Development's music, but we weren't famous or popular. So never got a chance to do that. When he reached out to me, we were in New York at a show with The Last Poets, and he came backstage, and I was so happy, excited to meet him. Long story short, he asked us to do the Malcolm X soundtrack. And getting in the studio with him first was just awesome because he was so involved. Like, he was part of the voices of Revolution. He was part of he got on the mic himself and was screaming along with us. Oh. He's very involved with the art that he does, and I love that. Then secondarily, the day of the video shoot in Brooklyn, it was my first time seeing such a consummate professional. The excellence of Spike Lee was so moving to me. He had numerous film crews, and I mean big production value, where we had 500 people marching throughout Brooklyn on one scene. Then we had a whole nother school that we did a scene in, and then we were on a block for another scene. My point is that all of those scenes were already preset, fabbed out, meaning the stylist, the makeup, all of that was done for 500 extras. The dance crews, the signs, everything was already done. We did that entire video in 7 hours. In my entire career, I never worked with such a professional, and I also never had such a quick video shoot. Usually our videos would take 2 days. This was 7 hours with 500 extras, 3 locations, all the lighting, all the big production. So I was extremely moved to be able to work with Spike. He was a great experience to work with. Yeah.
Malcolm X, I'll let you close us out with your final thoughts on him.
I think that it's very important for us, you know, now that we've moved away from a movie about this magnificent person who went through a lot of transformation in his life, not someone to be stuck or pigeonholed into one period, someone at the end of his life was reaching out to people throughout the African diaspora and also the people of different ethnicities. He was trying to build a coalition of people who were devoted to promoting human rights. I mean, to see him solely as this kind of proponent of segregation, just a negative voice against what white people have done in the world, is shortchange the transformative beauty of El-Hajj Malik Shabazz. And I hope that as time goes on, each May 19th, we remember the complete person, what he did, what he said, and ultimately what he was, the direction that he was headed in. And in that way, we can truly kind of honor his memory, and in some ways do as the director of the autobiography film asked us to do, and that's to remember to do the right thing.
Learn about Malcolm X, and definitely take your children, if you get a chance. Washington, D.C., the National Museum of African American History and Culture has a wonderful display on Malcolm X, and definitely read the Alex Haley autobiography and see Malcolm X, filmed by Spike Lee. I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and this is Interludes. To watch a clip from this week's episode honoring Malcolm X, please visit our Interludes YouTube channel. Have you seen it? It's the weekly chat with EP Michael Wamble, Coach Tony, and Val the Voice Johnson. Interludes Extra presents Talk on Tuesdays. Join us and other special guests as we break down the latest topics surrounding music, movies, and sports every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, live in the chat on our Interludes YouTube channel. Interludes. Original concept by Valerie Johnson. Written by Michael Wamble. Produced by Michael Wamble and Valerie Johnson. Original intro and outro music produced by Kendall Nesbitt. Interludes, a pure Lighthouse production. This episode is brought to you by Interludes Extra Talk on Tuesdays, where we highlight people of color in spaces of television and film. To subscribe to our YouTube channel or join our Interludes Facebook group, visit the website linktr.ee/Pure Light Media.